distinguished members of the audience and on the dais. I'm General J.J. Singh. I'm the former chief of the Indian Army and now the governor of Arunachal Pradesh. I'm very happy to hear the views expounded by honorable ministers and Mr. Gadkari, and also you, Prabhu. I have an observation to make. We are talking about progress, and we were saying politics of progress. May I like to give my observation on progress without politics. And that's exactly what's happening in Arunachal today. I am a general. I didn't prompt this charming lady to ask the question of Arunachal, even though we are supposed to be good at strategy. All right. The point is, in Arunachal Pradesh today, the development and progress which is happening is exactly what has been mentioned: infrastructure, roads, communications, connectivity, and rural development. And to that extent, a good information which I can share with everyone is that we are the state with the potential of 55,000 megawatts of power by hydro. And that is exactly the figure Mr. Gadkari mentioned. So I think if we focus on that, and what is happening on the ground is more than 100 projects have been, MOUs have been signed and are in different phases of development. In 5 to 10 years' time, a majority of them will be completed. 1/3 of India's power requirement will come from Arunachal Pradesh. Second point, while these big projects which have been sanctioned by the government, because there are no issues left for anyone to have a grouse. There is an airport coming up for the capital, a railway line connectivity, a 4-lane highway coming from Guwahati, a trans-Arunachal highway of 1,800 kilometers. That's going to be something like joining Spain, France, Belgium, Austria, Switzerland. That's the kind of a circle also that road will take. Once that is ready in 5 to 10 years' time, ladies and gentlemen, people may like to go there rather than to go to Switzerland and other places. Now, the point is rural development. While these mega projects will take 5 to 10 years to be ready, there is a requirement to look at how to create jobs for the young people and the women in the villages, in the rural areas. We have experimented, we have come up with a project which is in an area called Poma. It's come on the internet because it's a pilot project. What we have done, we have a nucleus of a...
I'll request you with time very short.
Yes,
Give us
I'll
the
just
question
take a minute.
Yeah.
I was giving my observation because this related to progress.
Yeah.
Right. We have a bamboo processing center, which was the nucleus of the whole idea. But when we wanted to do it, a tarmac road came up. That is the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana. Then we had a handicraft center come up. The school there came up.
I'll request
health center came up.
Questions,
yes, I'll just
because
finish
this is the subject we are talking about, politics.
What I'm trying to say is,
because you can't talk on politics, I know.
At the end of this, I'm saying that rural area is getting developed by their own initiatives, and about 30, 40 jobs have been created already. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any question, please? Yeah. Introduce yourself. Who want to ask questions, please?
I'm Srivatsa Krishna. I have a comment on what Minister Maran said and a question to the two principal political parties. Sir, the analogy you gave about Singapore is completely incorrect. Singapore companies, Temasek, Singapore Airlines, are owned by the government. It was the dividends which were given by these companies to the government which was given away as shares. You are comparing that with a political party on a campaign trail, giving away or promising a freebie on a budget which you have not even voted on, much less even be elected. It's a completely different analogy. Here, in the years the companies do not make a profit, they do not give a dividend to the citizens. That's my comment. The question which I have...
I will ask you, when did they do it? Did they do it earlier?
Done it
did they do it earlier before Mr. When Lee
They have done it many years, including last year.
Yeah.
They have done it many years.
I'm saying after he debuted his office as a Premier of Singapore.
Sir, they've done it many years, and the years they don't make a profit, they don't distribute the dividends. My question to the two principal political parties is, sir, the session is on politics of change. What are the two parties doing to ensure that honest, middle-class Indians who want to get into politics to bring about change are given a chance to get elected to Parliament and then given a chance to come into the Cabinet of Ministers? Today, I don't see either party doing something concrete, not tokenism. When I don't have a K in my surname, how do I, as a middle-class Indian, with middle class honest values get into public life? Thank you.
Kamal basically is asking, you're talking about inclusive growth, but not inclusive politics.
You know, there's no do-it-yourself method of getting into politics. There's no DIY. And I really think that politics needs good people, because it's people which make politics. It's leaders which make politics. There is no fast-track method. If you see the composition, I see the composition of the 7th Lok Sabha, which I entered into 30 years ago, and I see the composition of the Lok Sabha today. You see the composition of our state assemblies. There has been a change. When I came in the 7th Lok Sabha 30 years ago, there was a different generation. And I must confess that at times I felt that, you know, where have I arrived? I see this big change taking place. Now, if you say, how do we get into it? I think that is a question which has to be by a process. That there has to be a process of integrating with the political party, participating with the political party. There's no quota, I'm afraid, for urban middle class. That, you know, there's going to be a quota for urban middle class to come in. I came in from a constituency. I came in getting elected. I never looked around to find out how I was going to come into the mainstream. It has to happen by a political process of joining a party, because we are a democracy. And in a democracy which is composed of various political parties with different ideologies, it's your identification with a party, working in that party, being recognized by that party, and then having the electability. In India, I have no hesitation of saying this, sometimes there is a big gap between capability and electability. We must recognize this because, as I said, we are a complex country. India is just not represented by an urban middle class. It's represented by a very large rural poor class. And each one of them has to have a voice. So it's, while we have this diversity, not only in our languages, in our people, we also have this great diversity in incomes.
I think, Kamal, I think what the point you're making, Gadkari Sahib will also answer, that you are giving a general answer, that is there a room for any person who's not connected with any dynasty, political or otherwise? I think that is what he meant, if I am getting it right. Because we are heading, what is happening, change has taken place. When you were elected in 1980, that perhaps was the youngest Lok Sabha, because of Sanjay Gandhi there. But let Gadkari Sahib answer that question. Because are we heading, as he says, that we are not getting new people into it, we are getting into dynastic democracy rather than real democracy?
Now we are a big democratic country. The tragedy of the Indian politics is that those who are good, capable, can contribute socially, economically, politically, educationally in the parliament, they have no elective merit. And those who have elective merit, they are not that much competent. So it needs in any process addition of good people. If you are a good people, intellectual people, we have to add them elective merit. And for elective merit, there is a system. Only your capability cannot be a main point where it can be possible for you to get your seat in the politics. So what is the problem is that whatever the good people we have available, we have to increase their elective merit, by which they have to change their approach for the poor people, for the armed people. And if it is there, then that can happen. So my feeling is, as a political party, I feel that I always try to join good people, qualitative people of all sectors in the politics and giving them opportunity. But at the same time, the people who want to contribute in it, they should think about to increase their electability. That is also very important for popular politics.
I think, Jay, you wanted to ask a question, Mr. Panda.
Since Parliament got...
What happened? Anybody can check this, please? Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu. Jai Panda, Member of Parliament from Kendrapada, Odisha. It's ironic that the second fastest growing economy in the world, India, has happened under coalition governments. And when it had single party rule for many decades, it was a laggard. These coalition governments have been both Congress-led as well as BJP-led. So that brings us to the question of how progress can be even better under coalition governments. The fact is that even though we've had this great growth, there are still many items which are stranded because there is not enough consensus either within the ruling coalition or in bipartisan approach between the ruling party and the opposition. For example, labor law reform is stranded for many, many years. Next generation fiscal reform is stranded. But we have seen some examples of cooperation. When my party was part of the government under Mr. Vajpayee, we had a minority in the Rajya Sabha, and it required tacit Congress support to pass many legislations. Earlier this week, we've seen that a very historic bill was passed in the Rajya Sabha, and more votes were brought to the table by the opposition than the ruling government. So my question is, are there more such examples that can be hammered out? Are there more such initiatives that can be taken? I would ask Mr. Gadkari, what are the legislations which are stuck, which will give us progress, on which you are prepared to support the government? And I would ask Mr. Kamal Nath and Mr. Maran, what are some of these areas where you do not have enough consensus within your coalition, where you are prepared to reach out to the opposition and make progress happen faster?
Yeah,
Hi.
yeah, please.
I appreciate your positive approach, and I will support this viewpoint. The main problem, which is really important problem, that every politician thinks about his political career. I feel that it is obviously non-political party. Now we need a priority to think about the country, the society, and the economy of the country. There are a lot of big problems we are facing. But in the political party, we can add some good people belong to different sector of the society, and with a positive approach, if the ruling party is interested to start dialogue, then there may be some part of decisions on particular some policies, there will be unanimity, and that can be useful for the country. But what always, from when I became a president, from that day, I always appealed to the ruling party that start dialogue with the opposition party. Discuss these issues. Let us try to make unanimity in the national interest. If the ruling party can take the interest in that direction, I feel that that will be useful for the future of India and future good policies which are in the interest of the country.
Maran, you want to make a short comment? No, coalition politics is better than one party rule.
Sometimes it's better to keep quiet. Huh? It's better to keep quiet.
Kamal, you want to start a dialogue with them?
Well,
Because that's the complaint, that you don't talk to
certainly,
anybody.
we must recognize that dialogue in the political framework is very important. But I'd like to make another point when you talk of coalition. Yes, there has been a coalition, but the Congress party itself is a big coalition, representing all interests. We see this in cabinet. We see this in the different shades of opinion, which is represented, excuse me, across the country. Because the Congress party brings to the table all parts of the country, all sections of society, and all shades of opinion.